Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Of course. Of course. All right, here we go.
Hey y'all, it's Rick and Annie. We're going to be going through an upper extremity corrective exercise series, and we're probably just going to do it on one side to keep it short. So just to give you a heads up on what we're going to do. Annie, we've decided, has upper extremity postural distortion. So in an overhead squat, her arms fall forward. So we're going to do a release technique. So we're going to inhibit her lats and her pecs. We're then going to have her lengthen it. Then we're going to do an activation technique, and then we're going to do an integrated exercise to help strengthen and bring everything together. So, Annie, you ready?
Yes.
All right, come on down. Let's get that foam roller, and what we're going to do here is I'm going to have Annie go right basically into her armpit, but on the back side of it. So Annie's going to be rolling, not quite even her lats yet, but she's getting in that area with the tight muscles in the posterior side of the shoulder. And then as she rolls farther up, so the roller's coming down on her, there's a place called the scapula, right? So, or the shoulder blade. That inferior angle, that very last portion, the lats connect there, and you'll see when she hits it, because she's going to make a base. Right? So when Annie feels that little portion right there, it gets to be pretty tight, and that's where a lats connection. It's a nice place to release from. So Annie, you got that spot? Now remember, we're going to do a couple of releases. We'll hold minimum of 30 seconds to let that autogenic inhibition take place, let the muscle mechanoreceptors relax themselves. And then we're going to go right into the next exercise. So Annie, let's go right into the next release. So what she's going to do, I'm going to have her roll back down a little bit. And just because I want to make sure that she's not rolling anything but muscle here, slowly now roll forward so it's right here, just at the bend of the armpit. And she's going to do a release right there of the pec major, and the pec minor also happens to be in that area. Now, this is a heads up for you. If your client, and you need to ask, don't just assume that they don't feel something. Ask your client, do you feel any numbness or tingling? If they do, that's called not good. So make sure that they don't have any tingling, any numbness, because they're on a nerve or blood supply or both. So hop off of that spot, find another spot, make sure it's only muscle. Annie, you getting a nice little release there? Fantastic. So those are our two inhibitory techniques. I'm going to have you flip right over so you're face down into a child's pose. And the child's pose is what we're going to use to lengthen those lats out, and it'll actually lengthen the pecs out as well. Now, there's multiple ways to do it, but this is the way we're going to do it. And what I've done, I have her go into this position because she stretches the lats by having a posterior tilt here. She's reaching the arm forward, and I'm going to help her just a little bit. I'm going to brace her a little bit here, and then I'm just going to roll that forward, but I'm locking her hand on there so her arm reaches forward.
What is that ball called?
Scapula.
What's that?
Is it a roller? What is it called?
That's a foam roller, yeah. So it's kind of funny. Like, you can use a foam roller. You can also, you don't have to use that version. You can do you can do a ball lat stretch as well.
Okay.
So like this version right here.
That's it.
And honestly, you can even do it like, you can see here, you can be with like a bench, he's using a rolly chair.
Oh, wow.
Anything where you're just kind of reaching that arm up, and it just gets a really good like length there. And what's funny is I like half of this demo. I don't like the head reach. I'm not a big fan of him dropping his head like that. And we don't love this. It's like you would think that this is a much bigger stretch, but weirdly, if you look at your lats, these are all things I'm about to talk about, so I don't want to launch in too early, but see how it grabs your pelvis? So it is a little bit partially responsible for arching your low back a little bit. Not a lot. So when you do this version, when you arch your back like that, you actually take some of the stretch away. So it actually helps. It's one of the very rare instances where you'll hear a trainer say like, hey, give me just an ever so slight rounding in the upper back. Normally, we're always telling people like, don't round, don't round, don't round. But like this version, just a little bit is actually pretty helpful. So.
And the child's pose is what we're, and there's multiple ways to do it, but this is the way we're going to do it. And
Thank you.
I have her go into this position because she stretches the lats by having a posterior tilt here. She's reaching the arm forward, and I'm going to help her just a little bit. I'm going to brace her a little bit here, and then I'm just going to roll that forward, but I'm locking her hand on there so her arm reaches forward. That way she's getting some scapular elevation, getting additional stretch in the lat here on this side. Do you feel that stretch in there, Annie? So if I wanted to get a little more of a stretch, then I could actually have her shift her backside that way. So she create like a crescent moon here. So she's lengthening the lat this direction. All right, so let's go ahead and have you come up. Let's go ahead and start some activation exercises. So come on up this way. And the activation exercise I'm going to have you do is I'll actually have you squat down a little bit, and you're going to go into your YTAs, or this is what NASM calls their combo number 1, right? So she's going to go up into a Y position, so Y, and this is a nice activation for these lower traps right here. Go ahead into your T position. Nice T position. Again, retraction, but now we have some horizontal abduction, so we're strengthening posterior delt. And then come back into your YTA position. And she's got a nice little external rotation here. She's squeezing her traps. She's retracting her shoulder blades. And you may even get folks that are really firing up in their triceps. And we're not going for this tricep activation. So if that's the case, just have them come out a little wider and squeeze back more. Good. Go ahead and do another one. Y position. This exercise is called scaption. So she's doing a scaption here. Go ahead into your T. This is a reverse fly. And then let's go ahead into your A position. And if you guys are familiar with our work, this is what we do. We call a floor cobra, except we're standing now. So this is a standing bent over cobra. Let's go into our combo number 2, Annie. So what she's going to do now is she's going to go into a row. So this is a high row, not an upright row. It's a high row. She's getting her posterior delts really active here and doing her retraction. Now she's going to rotate. She's going to do a shoulder press. Now it's really firing up these stabilizers in the scapula. Let's do a lat pull down. Good. Rotate in and dive into the pool. Let's get one more. Go ahead and pull it back. Rotate up. Overhead press. Lat pull down. Rotate down. And dive into the pool. Very nice. Stand up, face towards me. Now we're going to go into our integrated exercise. So I'm going to have Annie do a squat to a high row. And again, a high row is this position, not here, because I don't want those lats continually pulling her into this kind of protracted position. So she's going to go up, bring the elbows up high, keep that upper trap area, the posterior delts quite active. And I'm going to give her a pull from this angle. So Annie's going to go ahead and squat. She's going to drive forward, squeeze the glutes, and then, yeah, there you are. Good. I'm going to bring it up a little bit higher. It was almost turning into an upright row, so go ahead, and that's much, much better. And you'll notice there should be a straight line between where her elbows are and the line of this. So if I come down too low, she's going into an upright row, and that's not a great position for the shoulder to be in. So we're just doing high rows. Let's give me a few more. Squeezing those glutes. Hold it up at the top. And 3. Good. Abs, glutes tight. Good, nice retraction. And one more time. Hold it. Hold it. Relax. Very nice. Cool. Thank you, Annie. And this is a nice little corrective exercise series. You guys go back through and make sure you look at this is the highlighted version of it. So make sure you go back through. You make sure you get both sides if both sides are affected, and then put this stuff to use. All right. Thanks again.
So there we go. That's a really good program.
I like that.
What's that? What'd you say?
I said I like it. It's
Yeah,
good.
you like it, right? It's good, right? So now let's go ahead. So now we've kind of seen a really, really simple program, start to finish. Let's circle all the way back and get into the muscles here. Which muscles are which? So he's just going to kind of go through these and talk about how we get here, and then I'll go through it. We'll get our chart up, and everything will be good. So, full length ad, gross. All right, same concept, a little bit shorter.
From the lateral view in our overhead squat assessment, one of the common compensations is to see the client's arms falling forward. As we squat, we should be able to maintain our arms directly overhead or in line with our torso. So to set up for this, we'll begin by aligning the 5 kinetic chain checkpoints. Be sure the feet are positioned hip width apart and straight. Be sure the knees are in proper alignment. Be sure we have the neutral position in the hips, and then we'll reach both hands all the way overhead. All the way overhead. We notice that she already has a little bit of trouble getting them all the way up there, so there's a really good chance this may be a common compensation for her. Now we'll perform 3 to 5 squats down to the height of about a normal chair. So as soon as you're ready, we'll lower down and we'll immediately start to notice. Can you go any lower in that squat? We'll immediately start to notice how those arms fall forward, and we'll just do one more. And stand all the way up and stop right there. So notice here in her ending position, see how much further her arms have come forward? So we can see there she's not maintaining them way back where that starting position was. So her common compensation here is the arms falling forward. Now for our overactive muscles, if you could turn and face there, our overactive muscles are going to be the pecs. This would be both the pec major and the pec minor. The pec minor is going to run right here in the shoulder from the coracoid process down to ribs 3, 4, and 5, which is in an angle towards the midline of the body. And then the pec major runs that way as well. Whenever these become overactive, that basically means they're mechanically shortened and they're going to pull that shoulder into this forward position. When that happens, she's not able to maintain her hands all the way up above her head. In addition to that, the latissimus dorsi can also become overactive. So we'll do one more little turn here. We have the latissimus dorsi that's overactive. And now the lat runs from the anterior portion of the shoulder, runs right through here and attaches or clips the inferior angle of the scapula down into the spine and attaches to part of the hips. So if we go ahead and raise up here, what we can see, if that lat is shortened, she has a really tough time getting her arm into full shoulder flexion. And what we can really see in her, notice the position here of her back, and as she reaches up, we can see how that position changes, so it tells us the lats are probably short and overactive. Now for our underactive, the muscles that are not doing their job, they're going to be positioned here in the back. So we'll rotate again. So what we really see being underactive whenever the arms fall forward is the mid and lower traps. Now these are two muscles that attach here to the scapula and they run down at an angle towards the spine. What they really assist with is stabilizing and controlling the motion here of the scapula. So if we ask her to take her hand here to the side, slowly begin to reach up, we can see that the scapula here is supposed to rotate. The mid and lower traps help to control that motion. If they're not able to stabilize the scapula in that position, then we'll see that those arms fall forward. You can go ahead and relax there and turn and face. So in the lateral view, one of the common compensations we see is the arms fall forward. The overactive muscles in that movement compensation is going to be the pec major, the pec minor, and the latissimus dorsi. The underactive muscles are going to be the mid and lower traps, as well as the rhomboids that sit there in between the shoulder blades and assist with that stabilization.
All right. So yeah, we're seeing some of our overactive, underactive stuff. Now, the one we're missing is a little bit of what's going on in the neck, right? Because let's take a look and break down, let's break down our over here, upper cross syndrome here. So I'm going to go ahead and actually I'm going to pull up a better picture. Upper cross syndrome. And we'll get our overactive, underactive lists going on here. Yeah, the problem is that I don't agree with some of the muscles on that list. Nice black and white background. Will not get it. All right, fine. I give up. Copy that. Image. Okay. So what we're seeing, in this posture here, right? Again, it's kind of coming down to the same concept that we kind of just, we keep breaking this down, right? Like it's overactive muscles on one side of a joint, underactive muscles on the other side of the joint. So if we're looking here, what we're seeing is a forward head posture, right? I'm just going to delete that and make that a little easier for you to see. So right here, we're seeing a forward head posture. That is way too big now. And then we are also seeing rounded shoulders, right? That's the other really big thing. Now, I will say, in addition to that, if we sort of look up here, right? So we're seeing like excessive kyphosis, that's your hunched back posture. But we're also seeing like internal rotation in the shoulder joint. That's what's kind of hard about this picture here, that I don't particularly love. But if you look, like this shoulder joint here is also internally rotating. So we're seeing internally right? So it's really more of a rounded upper back and internally rotated shoulders, right? So rounded and internally rotated, if you want to think of it like that. So three things, right? So we now know that's like, okay, well, the muscles that inwardly rotate the arm, probably a little tight, right? The muscles that round the upper back, probably a little tight. And the muscles that pull our head forward, probably a little tight, right? So there's the bit of posture stuff we're seeing. So again, this is referred to as upper cross syndrome. So why do we call it that? Well, let's take a look over. Really, I guess I should have replaced that. Let's take a look and see. Again, if we look this up, you'll see a lot of people putting images out there. They're just taking a much more basic approach to it that I don't like as much. But you can kind of see here, right? Also, I don't love those colors. Let's just do this one. Actually, there we go. So you can see like this person's got, you know, tight upper trapezius muscles up here, levator scapula, tight pectorals, right? And then they have weak lower trapezius muscles, the muscles in the upper back that would pull your body up, right? And weak deep cervical flexors in the neck that would also keep your head upright, right? So that's what's making the cross very similar to yesterday, you know. It's just a little bit of a different list here. So let's go ahead and break down our muscles on the list. So we're going to go over here and we're going to take a look. First one we're going to see on our probable overactive muscles list, we're going to see the pectoralis major and minor, right? So we're seeing overactive muscles in the, oops, that goes over here. I'm used to people facing this way. Pectoralis major / minor. So you look at that, right? Those are definitely causing a little bit of rounding because like you think about your pec major, right? It's in charge of horizontal adduction, right? That's that flying motion, right? Going like this, that chest press motion. But it also does, you know, let's look at the pec major here. It runs across the chest and it grabs the humerus right here. So when it grabs the humerus like that, that's one of the things that's causing that internal rotation of the shoulder. So your pec major does a little bit of that shoulder internal rotation, pulling those arms forward, causing that rounding action. Now, the next one we're going to see is also the high quality. I didn't let this image load. The next one we're going to see is also the pectoralis minor. So we kind of go back over here and we're going to say, yeah, definitely the pectoralis major, but also the pectoralis minor as well, right? So both of those muscles are really, really tight and they're causing this rounding. Now, you look at them, they are both pectoralis muscles for sure, you know, no doubt about that. Yes, they are both pec muscles, but they are not the same. Like this is a really common mistake that people make is they think that like all of your chest is in charge of like just the chest press portion. But look, we can actually see, right? This is grabbing the humerus, collarbone, and sternum, and a few of the ribs down here, right? But look at the pectoralis minor. It grabs just from the ribs and it doesn't even touch the humerus. It's not touching your arm at all. This is just grabbing that, we call that the coracoid process on the scapula, right? That's the only thing it's in charge of. So it's not so much that these, I mean, these are synergists. They're both working together, but one of them moves the arm and the other one moves the scapula. But either way, that's causing, right, a little bit of internal rotation, right? So we're seeing the shoulder protraction there and direct protraction of the shoulder itself. Like it's literally pulling the scapula and rounding it around the back there. So both of these are definitely really tight muscles. Now, one that I'm going to include here, and I know it's kind of an upper back muscle. I'm also going to choose to put, if we look at our list, and we go back over here. So we're seeing pectoralis major, pectoralis minor. We're also going to include that latissimus dorsi. Now I know like the lats are firmly way more back here, but let's look at that muscle really quick and talk about like why I would draw this, you know, if I'm making this little chart here, why I'm going to put it on the front side of the body, right? Because it's like my lats are very much back here. But if you do look at them, right, you'll notice there's one part of it which is firmly on the anterior portion of our body there, right? Yes, that is very, like, that is so much. So much of this is on the backside. But the important part to our conversation right now, like, let's just take this into paint really quick and look at the attachment site, right? Like, it runs around and it's grabbing, you know, it's kind of grabbing the bone on the front side of the humerus there, right? It runs underneath the armpit and kind of grabs the front side of the bone there. So my lat runs up under my arm and it's grabbing kind of right in here, right on the front side of where my arm is at. That's why you can put your arm under your armpit here and you can rotate your arm in like this and you will feel your lat muscle contract just by doing a little bit of shoulder internal rotation. So I know it's weird to draw it like this on the front side of the body here, but that's really kind of where it belongs, you know? Like it really is kind of internally rotating because of being, you know, running around and grabbing at the front side of the humerus there. So now we've got an internal rotator grabbing the front of the humerus there. We've got another internal rotator grabbing the front of the humerus there. And we got the pectoralis minor grabbing our coracoid process and pulling our shoulder blades forward. So now we've got internal rotation and rounding. So you can even just see it. Like if I stand here like this, and then all of a sudden, like I just, you know, if I go from palms forward like this, right, and I just rotate inwards, that's all I'm going to do. You can already see some shoulder rounding. And then if I protract even further, now I've got that major upper back rounding that is like our big problem there. So latissimus dorsi, which always surprises people, pectoralis major, pectoralis minor. And then we're going to see these two little tiny muscles here. Now, these are very specific to the whole arms falling forward problem. Teres major, not so much. Teres major, that's a rotator cuff. Wow, not official. It's not actually in the rotator cuff family because it's like the, you know, the kicked out of the family. But if we look at the teres major here, right? Again, same sort of thing. I know it lives on the back side of the body, you know? But again, we sort of look at where it's grabbing, right? Zooming out here, putting this muscle over here, right? It grabs the anterior portion of the arm. Again, it kind of runs up underneath here. You know, I'm drawing a little X-ray image there, right? And it grabs the front side of the bone. So again, both of these muscles do the same thing, right? This is going to internally rotate our humerus, and this one's going to internally rotate the humerus, right? So both of those are causing, I guess I should more X-ray image here. You tell I went to art school? I did not go to art school. That's a filthy lie. But you can see, right? Like both of these are causing that excessive internal rotation, which is giving us all of our
That's
problems.
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I know they don't belong on the front side of the body. I know both of these, like, usually even then, we usually label stuff based on its origin. But to make the whole cross syndrome thing work, we're going to choose to add the teres major in there. Now, there's one more muscle that is kind of surprising as well. Not surprising, but it's just a muscle we don't talk about very often. So boop, boop, boop. Wait. Oh, I didn't take it onto its own thing. Open that one there. The next one is the coracobrachialis. Have you talked about this muscle? You ever worked with this one before?
Family?
Have you ever worked with the coracobrachialis? Have you heard of this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I only bring it up because like most people just kind of forget about it. Not a lot of people ever really talk about this one, but it's right here. It's very much on the front side. And it's this little, and by the way, look at that. There's your freaking teres major, right? Like
Wow.
peeking out from behind there. This is your subscapularis. We're not getting into that right now. We'll see it later. But look, from the coracoid process to the humerus there, again, on the front side. So when this gets tight, right, it kind of pulls your humerus towards your coracoid process, or more likely, it pulls your coracoid process towards your humerus, again, causing shoulder rounding. So you try to raise your arms up, and what ends up happening is like you're literally kind of cramming your scapula into your own humerus, which like just you're not gonna be able to get it up. You can even just try that right now. Like I always tell people, I'm like, here, go ahead and just round your shoulders forward. Now, raise your arms up overhead, but you got to keep these here. And you're like, like you're not getting any further than that. So again, like it's on the anterior side, and it belongs there. That's the coracobrachialis. Actually, I think I did spell that wrong. Coracobrachialis. Right there on the humerus. So big list of muscles. I will say I'm less concerned with the coracobrachialis. On this list, if I only had a little bit of time to stretch out my client, the big ones would be the pec major, the pectoralis. Oh, I wrote pectoralis major / minor, and then I wrote pectoralis minor. That's a stupid thing to do.
Pec major, pec minor. Yes.
What's that?
I said pec major, pec minor.
Yeah. Whoops. We're gonna act like that didn't happen. You didn't see that? Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. So there we go, right? Pectoralis major, pectoralis minor, latissimus dorsi, teres major, and coracobrachialis. So I would say if you only really had time to like focus on, one of these, if you're trying to loosen everything up, I would say your big ones are the pec major, the latissimus dorsi. Like those two stretches are going to get you a long ways. Just open up that pectoralis muscle, stretch out that lat muscle. It's really going to get you 80% of the way there in two stretches. You know what I mean? But obviously we got a few more. So moving to the rest of our tight muscles here. And again, all of these are on that front side, causing that arm to just rotate, either internally rotate, or it's causing protraction of the shoulder. So we can even say here, I can kind of move my stuff, right? We're seeing there's our internal rotation and rounded shoulders there, right? It's going to be a good idea. Yeah, that kind of works. I don't like it though. So there we go. There's our rounded shoulders. Those are internally rotated shoulders. Not so great. So now we got to look at the head stuff, right? What the heck is, what is causing all that? That is awful, right? Well, let's get into it. So we go back here. We got our whole list for the arms falling forward. Now, with our forward head posture, we're going to see the levator scapula, the sternocleidomastoid, and then we're going to see the scalenes / upper trapezius. Now, I will say this. These are muscles that, yeah, they're kind of on the backside. Your upper trap is really kind of on the side, but I've only got, a 2D drawing here. So we're going to do our best. So let's go ahead and start with that levator scapula. Let's open a new window here. Get a new list of muscles going. So the levator scapulae, and actually I do want this to be on my other window. Now, this one's on the backside, right? And this is a good image. I like it. You've probably seen this image a million times. When you're studying anatomy, you always look at the levator scapula and you look at a picture of it like this from the back. It doesn't do this problem that we're talking about justice, though. Here's the thing. Let's take a look at the levator scapula from a lateral view, right? Look at how many pictures there are, like just from the backside, 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 backside. Let's take a look at the lateral view. Look at that muscle. It literally runs at an angle forward. So it's not just, and it's in the name. What does the levator scapula do? It elevates the scapula. So it's supposed to do this, right? It's supposed to take my scapula, my shoulder blades, and go up like that, right? But what it actually does, because it runs into my neck up here at a forward tilted angle like that, it doesn't just pull my scapula up, it pulls my scapula up and forward. Again, there's our shoulder rounding. Now, when that happens, right, our neck has no response but to kind of drop forward and look forward like that. This is like one of my favorite lessons because it's upper body dysfunction. It's also one of my least favorite lessons because I end up like just my neck's always stiff after I'm done teaching this class. But you can see, right, it literally pulls at a forward angle like that, causing the scapula to round forward. So again, this is a big shoulder rounding muscle. So we're going to see tightness in our levator scapulae, right? I guess I should say scapula, just because we're only talking about one at a time. I didn't say pectoralis majors. So there's our levator scapula. Then we're also going to see my favorite muscle in the body. I say it's my favorite only because I think the name is so fun to say, but the sternocleidomastoid. So this is another one that, like, I mean, here's the thing. Your sternocleidomastoid is totally over here, right? But again, we're going to kind of put it on the backside here. It really kind of doesn't belong there. But let's take a look at it. Right. Again, we always look at pictures of it here from the front, right? And by the way, it's actually a really well-named muscle. It's attached to the sterno, clavicle, cleido, and then it runs up to what's called your mastoid process right here behind the ear. But that behind the ear part is actually really important because now it's technically on the backside over here. So this is a muscle that's pulling us forward. So that is a very, very tight, overactive muscle on our list. Wrong picture. So sternocleidomastoid back here, there's our cross in the cross syndrome problem. Going back to our list. Now, this is where things get a little messy because, like I said, hold on, I want to pull up that one. But we're going to see the scalenes, right? So your scalenes are definitely like neck muscles. They're actually deep. So it's, pretty hard to get into these and work on them like massage-wise. And they're a group, right? Like NASM's taking a simple approach here. We're not saying like, anterior, posterior, middle scalenes. We're just saying the scalenes in general. But because they got a posterior side, technically, they're going to also kind of go back here in the sort of cross thing. So we're going to see the posterior in particular, but scalenes, right? So again, these muscles are attached to the neck there. Now, your scalene's job isn't necessarily shoulder elevation. That's not really their job. In fact, their job is actually, like I'm grabbing my collarbone here, right? Like I'm lifting that up. That's not the bone we're working with here. It's actually, you can see the rib, right? So this is responsible for grabbing that rib. Normally, it elevates your ribs during like stressful breathing, right? So, I mean, I'm sure you have been in this situation a million times when you are under stress in combat. Like I cannot think of a more stressful situation. But it is really important to learn how to like control your breathing in that situation, because when you don't control your breathing, one of the ways that like we stress breathe is we breathe like this. We do short little tiny breaths. You know, it's crazy. Yesterday, one of my evening students called out of class because he had told me the night before he had a out of nowhere, he doesn't know why, but he had like a random like panic attack. He was like hyperventilating basically. And he's like, I don't know why it happened. I don't know what I did. But it was one of those things where I was like, dude, you probably more likely than not we're just didn't notice it, but you're probably doing short, shallow little breaths. Now you would think like if I breathe like this, if I go like I'm getting an equal amount of oxygen in and an equal amount of carbon dioxide out, right? You would think that like it's even on both sides, right? It kind of sounds like it, right? But it's not. You are actually, when you breathe like that, when you breathe short little stressful breaths, weirdly it gives you too much oxygen coming in and too much CO2 going out. So you end up like venting CO2 faster than you normally would. And that sounds fine. You know, it's like, well, CO2 is the byproduct, right? Like that's the waste product. Why shouldn't I just, you know, breathe that out quickly? But here's the thing, your blood's chemistry is actually designed to have the right amount of CO2 on one side and the right amount of oxygen on the other. So if you can't create a gradient of CO2 over here and oxygen over here because you've vented all the CO2 out, you can bring lots of oxygen into your lungs, tons of it, but it won't bind to your blood. So you'll bring it into the chamber and then it won't get into your bloodstream. And you become what we call hypocapnic. Hypo for you don't have enough, capnic for CO2. So you end up having not enough CO2 in your blood. And what happens is it feels like you can't breathe, even though you're bringing in lots of air, because your blood is not absorbing the oxygen. So you are short on oxygen because you're short on CO2. Sounds really weird and surprising, kind of a weird way, roundabout thing. So how do you fix it, right? How do you get your CO2 levels back up? Well, that's why you'll see people, right? If I look up hyperventilation, right, we'll see pictures of people breathing into paper sacks. They'll breathe into little bags. And what that does, the reason that helps is you're actually breathing into the sack, you exhale some CO2, it gets trapped in the sack, and then you breathe back in and all that CO2 comes back into your lungs. And then you exhale again, it gets trapped again, and it comes back. So you actually end up raising your CO2 levels until eventually you get back to that gradient, and now oxygen can bind to your blood again. So my student Zamari last night, he completely had this like panic. It doesn't really know why, but I was like, dude, you didn't realize it. You're probably like on your phone, and this can happen. You're probably on your phone, and you know, maybe you were breathing just really tiny little shallow breaths. And that little tiny shallow breath action caused you to vent all the CO2 out. And then it triggered like a panic attack because all of a sudden your body was like, our chemistry is wrong, you know, freaked out. So why am I talking about this right now? Well, if you are elevating this rib while you're breathing, that's really good if you are working really hard. So when you're in like exercise mode, right? Like you are like, you know, you are breathing and using mostly your diaphragm, right? Which is mostly what we're supposed to use to breathe. But like you are, you know, you need that boost button, you know, you need that little bit of extra oomph because maybe you're sprinting away from a wild animal or something, you know. Great, we have an adaptation that helps with that, right? In fact, we got these little extra rib muscles as well, our intercostal muscles, right? And we got these scalene muscles that will help elevate our ribs. Now I can take a big deep breath in, right? Now, if I'm doing chest breathing while I'm sitting here on my phone, right, I'm tricking my body into thinking that I'm exercising or that I'm fighting off a wild animal. And so I'm working really hard to vent CO2, right? Because what I should be doing is I should be creating lactic acid. I should be working really hard and sprinting, right? So my body's venting CO2, but I'm not. Instead, I just have bad posture. And my bad posture is making me use my secondary helper breathing muscles. But I'm not in a situation where I'm exercising. So my secondary breathing muscles are overactive and they're venting CO2 like crazy. Now, that can cause tension headaches in the back of the head. That can cause panic attacks, and it causes stress. It can actually raise your cortisol levels. I've been demoing this as a joke, well, not as a joke, but like as a teaching method, sitting here like just my cortisol levels are probably through the roof right now compared to how they would normally be while I'm at rest. And it all comes from like a freaking tight scalene muscle. You end up using these secondary breathing muscles rather than your primary ones. And, you know, the problem with that is these breathing muscles are also freaking posture muscles. So it's also pulling your head forward. So the bad posture is causing bad breathing. The bad breathing is causing bad posture. It's what we call a feedback loop, right? And it just keeps getting worse. And we hate it. So we hate scalenes. We don't hate them. They're really helpful, but they are bad for us when it comes to screwing up our posture. I'm not even kidding. I'm starting to get a headache from doing like this dumb breathing demo. Get me back to neutral here. And then last one shouldn't come as any surprise. Ooh, hold on. Open that into a new image. Our upper trapezius muscles. Now, you got 3 sets of trapezius muscles. I love this picture right here. You can see they're color coordinated. You get your upper, you get your middle, you get your lower. These muscles are supposed to work like, that's my calculator, not paint. They're supposed to work like this, right? Upper trapezius pulls this way. Middle trapezius supposed to pull this way. And lower trapezius is supposed to pull that way, right? So they're all synergists in one way, right? They all do a little bit of like scapular retraction. They pull our shoulder blades towards our spine, right? But they also are antagonists to one another, right? They also pull in opposite directions. You can see like, you know, these guys are just doing scapular retraction, but these guys are doing scapular depression down here. These guys are doing scapular elevation. And again, we look at elevating the scapula, it causes our head to drop forward in response to that. So we're definitely seeing the upper portions of these fibers here, particularly just this top section, right, causing that shoulder rounding. So there are our overactive muscles on the backside of the body, right? So we got a pretty good list here of muscles that we need to work on and like loosen up, right? Now, me personally, I don't like to spend a ton of time in the gym, you know, stretching out or working on these muscles here. I like to spend, like, if I'm doing an upper body workout, I like to kind of just focus on like the big ones. I'll kind of go for this list right here. If I got time to do a little bit of a neck stretch situation, you know, after the workout is over, I'm not rushed for time. My client can do his homework, right? I love to stretch every one of these, you know, and it's pretty easy. But for the most part, I'm going to emphasize and probably stretch out that teres major as well. I'm probably going to emphasize mostly working on these guys, right? Because that's going to give me my most bang for my buck. So we'll go over the stretches for those once we take a few minutes here. But how you feeling so far, Love Patra? That all make sense? Feeling
Yeah,
good?
everything makes sense. Yes.
Sweet. And we're seeing, there's the cross again, right? We got another X here of tight stuff and weak stuff. So there's our list. And again, this is also, remember, I'm giving you the advanced list. This is the CES solutions table. This is the advanced list of muscles, right? So we're seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 muscles on this list. In the standard edition, now, it's not going to contradict, but it'll be a much shorter, way simpler list. We scroll down here, you're literally just going to see upper traps, levator scapula, sternocleidomastoid, not mentioning the scalenes, pec major, pec minor. Way, 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 way easier, simpler list. But I like the advanced list. I think we want to be complex. We contain multitudes. All right, so let's give you 10. I'm doing it. I'm nailing it on the breaks today. 9:29. Let's be back 9:39, and we'll launch into our underactive stuff. I'm not going to skip our breaks today. I promise. Okay. So let's get into the weak stuff, shall we? Let's get into the sort of underactive muscles here. So as we sort of glance at it, right? Switching to our other column, first thing with the arms falling forward, we're going to see the middle and lower trapezius, right? So that's going to be on the backside, right? We've got our middle trapezius. Whoops, these are going to be in blue. We're going to say our middle trapezius, right? No surprise there. You know, somebody is not able to retract their shoulder blades because they are protracting their shoulder blades. This muscle is going to be a direct antagonist to like our pectoralis minor. We're also going to see the lower trapezius. Now, again, we kind of go back to our trapezius sort of diagram here, right? Like the middle trap is in charge of scapular retraction. So are the upper traps, right? And so are the lower traps. All of them do scapular retraction. You know what I mean? But the upper traps do scapular elevation. The lower traps do scapular depression. So in that way, these two muscles here and here are antagonistic of one another. So because we see in a client with elevated shoulders, right, makes a lot of sense that we're going to have the lower trapezius end up on this list. So now we're starting to run into that problem again. Yesterday, we talked about altered reciprocal inhibition, right, where a tight muscle, the upper trapezius, inhibits the antagonist muscle, the lower trapezius, right? But also the upper trapezius, it does a little bit of scapular retraction, right? But the middle trapezius was supposed to be the main muscle there. So again, we also have a synergist decreasing the agonist. So definitely tight, weak middle and lower trapezius muscles both. Then we're also going to see the rhomboids there. Right, no surprise. Again, that's a scapular retractor working opposite of that pectoralis minor. And then we're going to see the rotator cuff, right, which is a group of muscles. So we got to kind of have the whole group under here, unfortunately, just because I want to review the rotator cuff. Always important to remember which ones are which. So in your rotator cuff, we are going to see mainly, I would say the most important one is the teres minor. That is working directly opposite of our teres major. We are also going to see that we have got weakness in our subscapularis. Now that one is kind of surprising. Let's go ahead and go through these muscles here. Actually, I forgot to do the rhomboids. So let's take a look at the rhomboids real quick. Again, sort of getting into our right. So our rhomboids definitely trying to do all Ken Hub pictures today. Definitely responsible for scapular retraction, right? Which again, we didn't see enough of in this particular client. But moving down from there, we got our rotator cuff. Now your rotator cuff is a group of muscles. There's actually several muscles that are sort of responsible. You can actually see, really good image, where like the teres minor is grabbing the backside of the humerus, right? Let's go back to our picture of the teres major. That one's grabbing, where did I put it? That one's grabbing the front side of the humerus, right? So the teres minor is directly the opposite of that. We sort of look here, we see that it's on the backside where, you know, teres major starting down here. They're both on the backside origin, but this one grabs the backside of the humerus, whereas the major runs under the armpit and grabs the front side of the humerus. So one pulls the shoulders internally rotated, the other one pulls the shoulders externally rotated. So we definitely see some weakness there. Supraspinatus is another one that we want to have on that list. So that one's actually in charge of abducting the arm. That's one that can be, if you have like shoulder impingement syndrome, you get a client with like a clicking in their shoulder. I don't know if you have that yourself, Love Patra, but like, if you ever get like that clicking sensation in your shoulder, that's actually where your supraspinatus muscle is basically getting pinched under the arm there. Teres minor, supraspinatus, also the infraspinatus. Right, which is underneath. So the two muscles, the infraspinatus and the supraspinatus, they're called that supraspinatus because it's above or superior to that ridge on the back of your scapula. We call that the spine of the scapula. You can kind of feel it if you reach back there. That ridge, that is, if you live above that, it's superior. It's above the supraspinatus, the spine, and then the infraspinatus is below. And then one that you can't really see in this image in particular is that subscapularis muscle. So what is the subscapularis? Well, this is the weird one. That is actually the one that is doing internal shoulder rotation. So we look at the subscapularis, right? This is not a picture from the back side of the scapula. It's a picture from the front side of the scapula. So we're actually looking, there's our coracoid process, lives on the inside ridge, and it's in charge of internal rotation. Now, that's a surprising one because it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Why are we trying to strengthen a muscle that causes internal shoulder rotation when I have too much internal shoulder rotation, right? Well, the muscle that was supposed to be doing your internal rotation was this subscapularis muscle, but we ended up primarily relying on the latissimus dorsi, the pectoralis major, and the teres major instead. So those three muscles all started doing, actually, there's a great picture, right? All started doing way too much shoulder internal rotation, and it ended up inhibiting our subscapularis. So again, we've got a synergistic dominance problem with this teres major muscle here, preventing our subscapularis from doing it. And if you look, this is grabbing here on the bottom of the arm, which is again going to pull the arm downward. So those are the rotator cuff muscles we want to work on, right? When I say rotator cuff, I mean these four muscles here. And then lastly, the posterior deltoid, which is not a rotator cuff muscle officially, but kind of acts like one in a lot of ways. So we look at the posterior deltoid here. Whoops, that's a wrong window. Yeah, forgot. Ken Hub does this thing where they just kind of consider all the deltoid to be one big group. There we go. Which it is. I mean, you got posterior fibers, you got anterior fibers, you got medial fibers. But we're mostly talking about the posterior fibers here. So again, this does a little bit, it's not great at it, but this actually does a little bit of like shoulder extension in a good way. It also opens up the arm here, or like a reverse flying action. Again, horizontally abducting the arm. So opposite of our pectoralis major. And that's the thing. This one technically belongs on the very top of my list. So posterior deltoid is going to be opposite of our pectoralis major. Middle trapezius and lower trapezius are going to be opposite of our pectoralis minor, along with the rhomboids. And then the rotator cuff is going to be opposite of our lats and our teres major. And then the coracobrachialis is kind of on its own. Technically, that one is opposite of the posterior deltoid as well, because that one does shoulder flexion a little bit, right? And your posterior does shoulder extension a little bit. But taking the basic approach, these are all lined up now. So there we go. There's our list of, again, underactive muscles. So lastly, we're missing just one group of muscles here. We go back to our problem, right? We also have the forward head posture. And we're going to see the deep cervical flexors, okay? Again, this is a muscle that sometimes confuses people. Oh, God, they're starting the stupid air compressor again. Oh, my God. There's construction right outside my window, and I'm going to kill them. So this is kind of a surprising muscle because it's on the front side and it's a deep cervical flexor. And so you're like, why am I going to work on a flexor muscle when I have too much forward head posture? But here's the thing. Your deep cervical flexors are in charge of this, right? They're in charge of looking directly down, like give you the double chin, pull the head back thing, right? Whereas your sternocleidomastoid, which we talked about earlier, is overactive. It's in charge of this. So we've got two different ways to sort of look down. We should be using our deep cervical flexors, but again, synergistic dominance, right? So we only see one muscle on this side of the group, but it's the deep cervical flexors. And there we go, right? So now, again, there's our cross syndrome, right? We got weak muscles from there to there, and we got tight muscles from here to here. And that makes the X that we're kind of talking about, which is really just kind of a helpful tool for you to kind of memorize the muscles. But that's what's going on with our posture, right? And again, your deep cervical flexors, that's working totally opposite of that sternocleidomastoid. Not opposite necessarily, they should be synergists. But again, this muscle here, the sternocleidomastoid, is totally inhibiting our deep cervical flexors. It is taking over. It's like Robin taking over for Batman. Batman can't do his job because his sidekick is, gumming up the works. So we take a look. Pectoralis major and minor, levator scapula, sternocleidomastoid, upper trapezius. They're missing the scalenes here. And then we're seeing weakness in the trapezius and rhomboid muscles and our deep cervical flexors. So now we just need to take a look at this chart and use this to come up with a good way for us to kind of, loosen up the overactive stuff, get it restored back to its original length. Because again, that's an overly contracted muscle fiber. And we need to strengthen up our underactive stuff. We need to activate our weak or underactive muscle fibers and hopefully get them back into the action here. So that's what he was doing with the program, right? He was having Annie, right, do all those rowing movements, which are going to strengthen the upper back, right? And taking her through that continuum. But you know me, I also really like, aside from just the NASM approach to things, I want to be a little bit more advanced than that. I love a good squat university video. So squat university, arms fall forward. Not that one. I'll find the right friggin' video. There we go. All right, so this is where a lot of people, he's going to go into, like I said, a little bit of a different technique here. But let's just open this up here.
Hey, what's up guys? I'm Dr. Aaron Horschig, and today I'm going to show you how to improve your thoracic spine mobility. Get up and get down, get up and get down. All right guys, thanks so much for stopping by the YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about stiff thoracic spine or mid-back. Now I want to start off with why a stiff thoracic spine can be so bad for your barbell lifting technique and performance. I'm going to show you 2 simple ways that you can screen and uncover whether or not this is a limitation, a weak link in your body, and 4 different ways that you can fix and improve your thoracic spine mobility. So let's start off today with why could a stiff thoracic spine limit your technique and performance. Now, this is especially true for overhead lifting. When I put a barbell on my back, let's say I'm doing any overhead work, let's say I'm getting into a jerk position, when I do that, there's a couple things that have to happen. I need your thoracic spine to be mobile enough to allow your shoulder blades to move correctly. Now let's move this camera over to the side and I want to show you what happens. If I don't have sufficient thoracic spine extension, what's going to happen is my lower back is going to have to arch. So from right here, if I have good thoracic spine extension and my mid back is able to extend enough, bar goes straight up. Well, if I don't, what's going to happen? That low back is going to have to compensate in order for me to keep that bar here and not from falling forward. Because often a stiff thoracic spine will allow this. Obviously, it's a little bit more of an exaggeration, but it's going to be a rounding of that upper back and not allowing enough upward rotation of your shoulder blades, which will not allow your arms to get into a good position. So if you have any desire to do jerks, presses overhead, snatches, any overhead lifting, you need your thoracic spine to extend enough. Here's just a simple demonstration. At home, if you're watching this, round your shoulders, bring your body into a bad kyphotic position. Obviously, this is an over-exaggeration. Lift your arms as high as you can. Obviously, you can only lift your arms so far. Now, stand up with good posture. Don't arch your low back, keep your low back braced, but just stand up with good posture, and now raise your arms as high as you can. You can notice how much further I can raise my arms overhead. And all I did was go from a slouched kyphotic position of my mid-back to a good upright position. So I gained thoracic spine extension. Now, let's talk about how you could screen your body to uncover whether or not you have a weak link or a problem in thoracic spine, rotation, mobility, extension. What you're gonna do is you're gonna sit on the ground. Right here, I have a tape of an X. We're going to sit right in the middle of that X. Now from here, what you're gonna do is you're gonna place this PVC pipe just across your shoulders. And you are going to then rotate as far as you can each way. So you're gonna rotate this way, and then you're gonna rotate this way. Now you're gonna see for whether or not that PVC pipe can go past that X and if you have symmetry side to side. So right here, I'm gonna rotate as far as I can. Obviously you can see I can go past that amount. And then we go to the same on the other side. If you are not able to get to that position, it means you don't have sufficient thoracic spine mobility rotating side to side. And the way the thoracic spine works is that if you can rotate sufficiently one way and the other, your spine can also extend enough. That's the same mechanic side to side. So we can expose issues in extension by finding problems and measuring problems in rotation. So this is at least 45 degrees and you should be able to hit 45 degrees each way. Now another way you can do this for all my physical therapists, athletic trainers, chiropractors out there, this is often performed in quadruped. So here's another way that you can test thoracic spine rotation. You're gonna sit into a position like this. Your elbow is gonna go in between your knees. You're gonna take your other hand and put it on your low back, and then you're gonna try to keep your chest pinned down to your downside thigh and rotate as far as you can. So here, rotate up and back down. And we're looking for whether or not you can open your chest up to 45 degrees, at least on each side, and whether or not it's symmetrical. If you can only do so much on one side, and you have a lot more motion or a lot less motion on the other side, that's an imbalance in the way your thoracic spine is moving, which could lead to problems in technique in moving your arms overhead. So again, this is what it's gonna look like. Here, rotate up. How far can I go? And then back down. Don't cheat and do this and raise your chest up, because then you're getting also a lot of that motion from the lumbar spine. So here, how much can you go up? And back down. So if you found a problem in those positions, let's talk about how we can fix it. Let's go back to the first exercise movement that I was doing with the foam roller. Now, this is a very simple mobilization tool for improving thoracic spine extension. You're gonna place that foam roller right underneath your shoulder blades. Okay, so it's gonna be on your lower portion of your thoracic spine. From here, we are going to brace our core, arms here, and you're going to slowly rock back and forth overhead. And what we're doing is we're mobilizing our thoracic spine into extension with our arms overhead. So that end position, that end game of what we're trying to improve. Now from right here, you're just performing like tiny little sit-ups. And then you can move to a next spot, tiny little sit-ups up and down, working on improving that extension, the ability to go backwards like this. Now, here's the common fault. People will do this. Where did I get all that motion from? Just got it all from my low back. So that is not helping me at all with that thoracic spine. You want to make sure that you're just doing small little motions and feeling for whether or not there's a segment that may feel a little stiff, like it's not moving very well. Hang out on that spot for a little bit, maybe do 15 to 20 reps in each position, keeping that core braced. And then again, after every single one of these, go and retest. Put your arms overhead, see if you feel like you improved that at all. Here's the next one. Just grab that same foam roller, you're gonna put it on the ground. We're gonna do the prayer stretch. This is a similar pose like in yoga. You're going to have your arms up, and we're gonna let our chest drop as far as possible. So this is what it's gonna look like. You're gonna get your hands in that overhead position. We're gonna get down into a good kneeling position. Now from right here, as you go down, you are going to let your chest drop as much as possible with your arms going over your head. You should feel a good stretch in that mid-back. When you're in that bottom position, I want you to take 5 deep breaths in and out every single time, letting your chest drop just a little bit further towards the ground. Let's see what that looks like. So you're gonna be here, drop down. 5 deep breaths. And back up. And I can really feel a good stretch in my mid-back when I'm doing this. Here. And back up. So that is the prayer stretch, okay? Now let's take that one step further. What you're gonna do, grab your PVC pipe. So this is a step above the foam roller. This is one of my favorite ways to improve thoracic spine extension. You're gonna take your PVC pipe and you're gonna have your arms in this position. This is gonna be similar to that front rack position, and you're gonna get down and kneel by the box. Now from here, what you're gonna do is drop your chest to the ground. Try to get a little bit of an arch in that back. Now, make sure it's not all coming from your low back. Try to get as much of it from your mid-back as possible. So from here, we're going down and we're trying to drop that chest, feel for that stretch right in that mid-back, and back up. Something like this, I want you to hold for maybe 5 deep breaths, in and out. So again, elbows are up, and we're dropping down. And back up. Now,
So many ads. Uh-oh.
now this
What's that?
No, I thought the video stopped, so I was like,
Yeah, I thought that was an ad, and it was just a picture ad. Okay.
stretch, look.
Shop the Google store to get
Oh
Nest
my
Phone.
God, I started another ad.
The indoor camera getting rave reviews.
Get out of here.
And we're dropping down. And back up. Now, this stretch looks very similar to the box stretch for improving lat flexibility. What's the difference? With the lat stretch, we're doing 2 things a little bit different. We're first having our elbows very much so at a V. That's gonna help externally rotate our shoulders. Remember, the lats are an internal rotator. So we wanna externally rotate when we stretch, but then also with the box stretch, when we're hitting the lats, we're also rounding that low back a little bit, because the lats not only attach up here at the humerus, but also have that connection deep in the low back. So if we round our back and put our hands in a V position, we're getting a stretch of that lat muscle in both positions. We're putting more tension on the muscle. So the lat stretch is here, and then as we go down, we're rounding our back like this. Whereas with the thoracic spine, or here, I'll show that lat stretch one more time. Here, and I'm feeling a very good stretch on the outside part of my arm. Whereas with the thoracic spine, I don't need your hands necessarily in a V, and we're arching that back. So we're working on extending that thoracic spine. So we're here. and back up. And that's going to change the position where you feel that. Now, if during this you get a little bit of an impingement type pain in the shoulder, just change your position of your hands. You can go a little bit wider, a little bit more narrow, more at a V, more in. Find the position where you're able to alleviate that shoulder pain and getting most of that stretch in the mid-back. So that will be very helpful. So that is the box stretch. The next one that we're going to work on, all you're going to do is grab a bench. Let's get set up right here. And we need that foam roller again. Here's your setup. You're going to sit in this position. The foam roller is to be squeezed between the knees to help stabilize the lower body. From right here, bar on your back just as if you were going to do a back squat. Now, from here, we are going to brace our core sufficiently enough to rotate mostly in our mid-back. I don't want to get a lot of low back rotation. So from here, we're going to rotate as far as we can. You'll feel a little bit of a stretch in that mid-back. And then once you get to that end position, you're going to rotate down and back up. And you're going to see if you can rotate a little bit more. Down and back up. Maybe even a little bit more. Down and back up. Now let's go to the other side. So we're squeezing, we're rotating, get to that end position, a little bit of a rotation and twist, down, rotate. And again, I'm trying to do this mostly in my mid-back. Not trying to get this in the low back. Try to take that mid-back thoracic spine, rotate and twist, down and back up. The mechanics of your thoracic spine allow that spine to do many different motions. We have rotation, we have side bending, we have flexion, extension. So this exercise is great because it allows us to rotate and then side bend. So we're able to gap that joint, those different joints of the thoracic spine to improve that mobility. So we're rotating down and back up, and you're doing that maybe 2 to 3 times in each position. Now again, just like every other mobility exercise, it's very important to test and then retest to see if you are efficient and effective at improving your mid-back mobility. Because in the end, if we're not efficient with our exercises, you're just wasting your time in the gym. So take a seat back down in the middle of your X. Let's put that PVC pipe back on your shoulders, brace your core a little bit, and see how much rotation. You can see how much more I have with just those few exercises that I did right there. Let's do one more side. Check on this side. Rotate as far as you can. You can see there's just a little bit more, and that's only a couple minutes of thoracic spine mobility work with each one of those. And again, also get back under the barbell, push that barbell over your head. See if you're able to more freely move your arms over your head with a good extended posture. So it's a little bit longer video. We have a couple different exercises. We have a why, we have 2 tests, and we have a number of different corrective exercise fixes. Always test, retest to see if you are efficient, effective with finding the right mobility exercises for your body. Hope you guys liked today's video on YouTube, and let me know if there's anything else that you want to learn about in next week's video.
Okay. So similar in our approach here, right, as to like what we're working with, to how like NASA would go about it, right? If we sort of look at this with like a standard NASM program, it's going to be, all right, we're going to inhibit our overactive muscles, then we're going to lengthen inhibit and then lengthen our overactive muscles. And then we want to turn on and integrate our underactive muscles. So it's going to kind of pivot me into talking a little bit about like NASM's, they call it their corrective exercise continuum, right? So we sort of put this up here. I'm just going to kind of lay this out, right? So if you think about it, like, it's a 4-step process, right? We start with like this idea, as we're going to, and this is what we've been doing all week, right? But if you look at like this idea of inhibit, right? That's what we're going to do. Overactive muscles through. Actually, let's try this. So our first step is to inhibit overactive muscles through SMR, right? Like that's going to be our first step. So when we talk about that in terms of like writing a program, right? We would, do foam rolling on our tight overactive muscles and try to get them to release. So if we're looking at that in this situation here, it's like, well, what muscles are going to be really good options for us to SMR, right? So we might do like a little bit for the pectoralis major if we can kind of get in there. But really, I would argue more than anything, try to get into that pectoralis minor, right? With like a little bit of like a lacrosse ball action that might loosen that up a little bit, right? Really just kind of press it into the coracoid process there and trying to get that muscle to relax. Then a little bit of foam rolling underneath the lat to kind of relax that and get the arm up overhead, also going to be very helpful. Now, teres major, there's an argument to be made that maybe you can kind of work into that on the bicep here, like, coracobrachialis a little bit, but probably not the most bang for your buck. So we'll probably switch our SMR up to muscles like the upper trapezius, right? Trying to relax all those muscles in the shoulder there. Might even get a little bit of like manual pressure there in the sternocleidomastoid, right? Maybe getting up there at the processes, the mastoid process as well. And then the levator scapula, right? Reaching back and maybe just giving a little bit of massage right there on like the neck, working into that as well. So inhibiting those muscles through a little bit of SMR, right? For the most part, if you only have access to a foam roller, doing a very simple thoracic release, just getting in there with a foam roller here could be a really good way to kind of inhibit some of those upper back muscles. Now, I know you're kind of rolling over your rhomboids, you're kind of rolling over your middle and lower traps as well. But, if this is all you have access to, that's still a pretty decent way to kind of get into just the origin of those, the insertion of those upper trapezius muscles, right? Kind of just like working in there and trying to get that to relax. So that's NASM's first step. They want us to go through a little bit of an inhibitory technique for our tight overactive muscles. And we've been doing this all week, but like today's the day that we're kind of breaking this down step by step by step. So once we're done inhibiting, right, then we are going to move into lengthening those overactive muscles, right? So when I say lengthen, what I mean is like, okay, well, this is where our stretching techniques really come in, right? So we're going to lengthen overactive muscles through static stretching, right? Or you could do it through like PNF as well, right? If you're going to do like PNF, I know like you've done massage, so you've probably done like a little bit of PIR. That's also a really good option. Really just kind of getting in there and kind of lengthening out those muscles so that they don't tighten back up afterwards. So we always follow up our foam rolling with a little bit of stretching for the same muscle group there, right? And that's what's going to have the most positive benefits for us. So we see we're going to inhibit first, we're going to lengthen second. And again, both of these are what we are applying to our tight overactive muscles. So, okay, good, right? But how many times have you heard somebody say it's like, well, I stretch and I stretch and I stretch and I stretch, and like it's just like, my posture's not getting any better, right? Well, in order to understand that, we kind of got to go back to, again, like the overactive versus underactive muscle situation, right? We see the images here. This chart kind of does a really good job of kind of breaking this down. It's like, well, yeah, it's like you've got a tight muscle on one side, you got a weak muscle on the other. So what you've done is you've untied this knot here, right? Massaged it out a little bit through SMR, right? You lengthen it out a little bit through some version of a stretching technique, right? But the problem is you haven't pulled it back actively the other way. You know what I mean? Like you haven't like activated that underactive muscle to really pull it back into alignment. So in our next step, we need to kind of switch So I'm just gonna get rid of some of these. We really need to kind of switch back to our underactive stuff. So now, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna activate, right? And again, this would be our underactive muscles. We're gonna activate underactive muscles through isolated strengthening. So what do I mean when I say like isolated strengthening? Well, basically, I just want to work that muscle all by itself, you know? I just want to have a chance to kind of, you know, say like, hey, brain, this is the muscle I want you to be using a little bit more often, right? Like we're using these overactive muscles. Actually, I really just realized. I don't like how my chart's looking. Inhibit, then we're going to lengthen, then we're going to activate. And say like, hey, brain, we've been using the wrong muscles to do all this work. I really want to take a chance to kind of get my underactive stuff really just like turned on, you know, like firing properly so that like I can use the correct muscles. Again, if I've got like a synergistic dominance problem, I need to activate the muscle I want to be using so that that synergist will stop taking over, you know. So there we go, right? We've got a little bit of activate, you know, underactive muscles, and we're gonna do a little bit of isolated strengthening. So for that, that could be something like just a row all by itself, could be something like a shoulder raise or an external rotation, something where I'm just using that muscle totally solo, right? And then finally, we want to get into our integrated movement here, where, okay, well, now I'm using the muscle correctly, but I need to make sure that I can use it all the time. So we're going to integrate underactive muscles with total body, with compound exercises, right? So now I'm going to get into actually using that muscle with other muscles. And because that's kind of complicated, right? My brain is really going to have to learn like, hey, I need you to keep this thing turned on all the time. Like, I don't want you to just use it, you know, only when I'm doing this isolated exercise. I want you to use it whenever I'm using my shoulder blade, right? Anytime I'm doing like a scapular movement, I want to make sure the right muscles are turned on. So this is kind of like, this is NASM's sort of approach to like fixing all this stuff. It looks really similar to what we've been looking at in the Squat University videos, but it does put a little bit more emphasis on soft tissue and relaxing some of those those overactive muscles. Really kind of puts a little bit more emphasis on just, you know, trying to get that tight stuff turned off, you know? So again, we inhibit our overactive stuff with a little bit of SMR. We lengthen our overactive stuff with a little bit of stretching. Then we activate our underactive stuff to wake it up. And then we integrate it so that like, I'm not just using it only when I'm focused on it. I'm training my body to say like, hey, keep my shoulder blades retracted even while I'm walking around every day, right? Something that's like complicated because it's always easy to like, well, it's always easier to do something when you're like firmly focused on that thing. It's a lot harder to do that thing when, you know, you are focused on all this other stuff as well, right? We want to get our body to a place where it remembers to stabilize the knee, you know, all the time, right? And when you think about this, this looks pretty darn similar to a little bit of SMR in our warm-up, followed by a little bit of stretching in our warm-up, followed by maybe a core activation exercise or something where I can work that muscle by itself, and a balance exercise where, you know, I have to focus on my balance, but oh no, I also got to remember to use my rotator cuff or something like that. So we look at like the approach that he takes in the Squat University video. He's also doing a couple other like particular stretches, like, you know, lengthening out over the foam roller and things like that. But like, while those are very dynamic, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't fit into like your kind of standard NASM protocol. So that's actually where I wanted to get to in this next hour. How you feeling so far, Love Patrick? Chime in for me. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Excellent.
Oh, hold on. You went back to mute. You got the double click. I heard you chime in for a second and you're muted again. Oh, you there? You with me? Sorry, you're still muted if you got the button.
Yes, I said I'm following up. I'm following up with you. I'm
Excellent.
following up with yes.
Okay. So all right, well, let's go ahead and now that we kind of got our muscles sort of understood here, we've got our process for how we're going to fix it understood. Let's take another few minutes. I'm going to give you a 10-minute break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to design some programs that are going to sort of address this, right? And then we'll put this together with some of our other days as well. All right, stretch the legs. Okay. All right. So let's take a look here at how to put this all into a general workout. So okay, so we're gonna go through this process. First, we're gonna go through like again, kind of like we did yesterday. We're gonna go through like the super NASM style process, right? So this is going to be a client particularly. Particularly, we're gonna. Oh, uh-oh, I lost her.
Much
You trying
better.
to ditch me?
No, the screen, I was not seeing it fully, so I was trying to enlarge it, then it caught me. Oh,
Okay, no. I
sorry.
believe it, man. Zoom is glitchy as heck. All right. We're gonna go through this very, very textbook style first, and then we'll go through it with a little bit more of like what I think would make a really kind of good approach. We'll say like client's name. We're just gonna call this I don't know, Donnie. And then we're gonna say Donnie's in phase 1, and he's going to fix upper cross syndrome fix-it routine. Simple as that, right? So, oops. So like I said, kind of go back to our little chart here, right? We're seeing we have some real tightness in some of these upper neck muscles. There's some real tightness in those pectoral muscles as well. So we kind of go into here and we look at our chart, right? Our chart is actually going to give us some really good examples of like, okay, you have the arms fall forward, floor cobras, ball cobras, squats to rows, chin tucks, things like that. But we got to get a little bit of SMR in there as well. So I want at least 3 foam rolling exercises just to kind of warm things up. But first we're going to go is we're going to a little bit of SMR for the pec minor, right? Now, when you're SMRing your pec minor, it's pretty hard to get in there. Pretty hard to get in there with your pectoralis muscles, right? You can even see, like, I Googled pec minor, and it's like, yeah, I mean, you can kind of get like the edge of the roller in there, like a little bit, you can kind of press on it, maybe, but it tends to be relatively ineffective, right? It's just not our best work. You're gonna be much better off getting in there with something. She's using a softball, but you can get in there with like a lacrosse ball or something like that. Physio ball. Actually, there's ironically that guy went with a foam roller as well. But something like this is going to be a really effective way to kind of press on that. So really, just one of these little tools, one of those just little SMR balls, the orb, lacrosse balls, any of these are all really, really, really great options for just kind of getting in there and kind of loosening things up so you can really restore that posture. I just realized I gotta hide these. My wife's gonna see. I gotta make sure I don't let her see her Christmas gifts. So we're gonna place that foam roller, right here, and you can even look up if you ever want, like, if we go like pec minor trigger points, right? We can also even see like the best places to kind of put that roller, right? We're gonna basically aim near the tendon, right, near that coracoid process, just a little bit below it, right? And that can have some really positive benefits. So we're just going to go a little bit of SMR for that pec minor using like a little lacrosse ball there. So I like this version here. Then copy that image address. We're going to go over here. We're going to put that in our routine. So we'll link it. So now I can get my client a little bit of homework here. You know, they can click that and be like, hey, there's what I want you to do. So we love it. That's a really good one. We've kind of loosened that up a little bit. So pectoralis minor. Now we got to get into the latissimus dorsi. Like that is going to be a really, really big one for us. So getting in there, a little bit of SMR for the lats. Really going to be helpful, right? Just getting on the foam roller, trying to loosen that up. Now, you can do this with a straight body version like this. Personally, I find it's a little bit easier if you take your opposite leg down like this. I find that that gives you can use this leg to kind of roll up and down. Now, when I say roll up and down, I don't want my clients rolling on the foam roller. You see that all the time. Like people get on the roller and they just like roll and roll and roll. And it's like, no. Like you want it, that'd be like if I was giving you a massage and I just like went up and down like a whole bunch, right? I want you to sit. I want you to kind of press in there and really take the time to get that release. Right? We want to kind of dig in and get that autogenic inhibition to kick in. But I do like having the leg pivoted because I find it's a really easy way to just kind of find that tender spot. Now, I do think this guy goes a little low here. We got to be careful not to get into our floating ribs. You get down there, you might actually bruise a rib or you can even break it because, again, like these two bottom ribs here, they're not attached, you know? So not a really big fan of that. But in general, I think this is a decent version. We use that as a demo. That's a pretty good one with like the bent leg there. It just makes it a little bit easier for you to kind of pivot. And that pivoting action is really helpful. So I'll just go ahead and copy that image address. We'll go back over here. Link that, put it in there, right? And then lastly, it's like, okay, well, what else is on our list, right? We've knocked out the pecs. So now, can I get in a little bit of foam rolling for my teres major? Yeah, maybe a little. Yeah, you can get into like just the very bottom of your scapula there, right? You can give that a little press, right? And that can sometimes get that muscle to relax. So you can go up into the coracobrachialis there on the front of the arm, right? That can be a little bit helpful. But I don't know. Again, it's not really the most bang for your buck. So I'm not as big a fan of those. Could I get into the levator scapula? Sure. Could I get into the sternocleidomastoid? Yeah, a little bit. Scalenes, me personally, I think you're going to get the most out of it if you just kind of generally get in there with a foam roll and just kind of work on that upper back, right? So a little bit of just like SMR for our T-spine, our thoracic spine. Probably going to be where we can get a lot of multitasking done and kind of really get that to relax. And then we can even do some thoracic extensions there where we can actually sort of open up our upper back as a very dynamic approach. Again, that's not one that NASM's doing, right? But just a little bit of rotation there. So I'm just going to go take the thoracic extensions out of it. And we're just going to put, you know, a little bit of rolling there, trying to kind of get into the thoracic spine, you know, get that upper back sort of loosened up in general there. So let's go. Oh, dislike that. She's a little low for my taste. Yeah, let's go this way. That's nice. So copy image address again. And now we've got three really good exercises for loosening that up. Now, again, you look at your Q variables, you can do anywhere from 1 to 3 sets, 30 seconds each on that duration. I might want to put a coaching tip in here. So I might say like, you know, you know, let's say like the lats, be cautious not to go too far down on lats. Right. So I might say like, hey, be careful not to go super far on the lats. That might cause, you know, some problems there as you get into those floating ribs. So now we kind of go back through our process here. We have officially inhibited our overactive muscles. So now we need to get into lengthening them. So we're going to follow that up with some static stretches for those muscles in particular. So for our pec minor, we're probably going to do a pectoral wall stretch. So what is a pectoral wall stretch? Well, I'm just going to go up to the wall and I'm going to pull that back. I'm going to do that horizontal abduction, right? So we'll go right there. Link that in, right? And then I might go with that prayer stretch. Now, this will require, like, you want to have like a PVC pipe for your client. Although they can do this with just simply like their hands like so, but I find like having something to hold on to is actually really helpful. I'll even sometimes use like a resistance band and have my client pull out with the band as they kind of go into that stretch. But again, it's just that situation where they're going to kind of place both arms right there and then kind of sit back into that. And that's going to stretch out those lats really effectively. There's even like the other benefit to this, which is kind of nice. The other benefit to this is actually the fact that, like, as you're doing it, you're even bending your elbows a little bit, which kind of stretches your triceps, which share some common fascia with those lats as well. So this is, again, is just a really terrific stretch for getting that to kind of loosen up there. But I do want to find a slightly better image than this one, just because it's very, very pixelated. Yep, that'll work. So back over here. So we're going to write that as a static prayer stretch. I did forget to write the word static here. Shoot. Let me open up, back up and fix that. Remove hyperlink. There we go. Okay, so now static a little bit. You know, we've stretched out our lats, we've stretched out our pectorals, right? Now, what are we gonna do about, like, you know, again, we kind of go back to this. It's like, well, do I want to get, you know, I got my lats and my pecs there. Do I want to get my teres major? Do I want to get my coracobrachialis, sternocleidomastoid, levator scap, scalenes, upper traps? Which one of these is probably going to be the most effective? Honestly, any of them is going to be pretty darn helpful. But I think if we're just sort of focusing on like a major sort of push day routine, we probably want to either get some external rotations in there, which are going to be very helpful, or we might want to, and then that's going to stretch out that rotator cuff so we don't have too much internal rotation, or we can get into any of the various like neck muscles there. But one that I really, really like in general for just, you know, increasing that thoracic mobility is going to be thoracic rotation stretch. Just a really simple, you know, sort of opening that up, right? So we got a version here, like we saw in the video. He had the PVC pipe and he just did that assessment where he turned and then he turned as far as he can. That can be really helpful for getting upright. But one of my all-time favorites that's just really simple to perform is just doing this in a quadruped position. So I should say that's a quadruped, actually static quadruped thoracic rotation. Okay. Copy that. Put it right there. And there we go. So now let's get the underline out of there. I always hate it how it underlines the the hyperlinks. So again, just a really simple you know, upper body routine that's going to kind of relax some of those muscles that are kind of rounding our shoulders. This is going to make it a lot easier for us to get in up overhead. It's going to make it a lot easier for us to do effective pushing. Might even help with our effective like pulling. So again, our acute variables, 1 to 3 sets and 30 seconds each. On that routine, right? I can get rid of some of this extra stuff. And there we go. Let's see. Can I think of any coaching tips to say? You know, not really. I mean, like, honestly, that one's pretty self-explanatory. I will say on the prayer stretch, keep shoulders, shoulder width apart. You will sometimes see people like they'll come really narrow like this, and that's like causing rounding. It's like, no, we're trying to fix the rounding. So, make sure that those shoulders are staying in like a neutral alignment. Okay, so now we've got a pretty good approach to just kind of opening up some of that upper body, making it a lot easier for us to get our arms up overhead. So now we got to get a movement prep routine. Now, until now, we've seen our movement prep routines. It's pretty easy to do some core work. It's pretty easy to do some balance work while we're working on like the ankles, the hips, you know what I mean? Like we're activating like glute stuff in particular. So, when it comes to getting some core work in there on the upper body, it doesn't seem like there's as many options available. But let's go back to our list here. We're gonna find that we start getting into this activation thing. I'm trying to turn on my underactive muscles. How do I do that and get a little bit of core work simultaneously? Well, there's actually a pretty good list of options out there. We take a look over here again. With the arms fall forward, we got a floor cobra would be a really good example, right? If you've never done a floor cobra before, it's just like a Superman exercise, except that you are going to go, well, I guess that might work. It's just YouTube anyways. I hate it when I link these videos, but you can see she's really just kind of focused only on pulling those shoulder blades back and down like this, right? She's not lifting her legs up. Like, I don't dislike a Superman exercise, Come on, YouTube. Stand by. My internet's being the dumb. There we go. Like, I don't hate she's gonna do an alternate.
Begin by lying on your stomach.
She might do like a regular Superman where she's doing both at the same time, right? Just kind of bring those arms up, bring them back down. Not bad, pretty good. She could do alternating, right? She could go left arm, right leg, right arm, left leg. That's actually not so bad either. I like it. I don't dislike a Superman exercise, but if I'm in the stabilization phase, I'm really kind of focused on not moving my spine too much. So I'm probably going to go with something a little bit more basic. A floor prone cobra is a great core exercise where I also can have my arms down at my sides. Somebody adds. I can have my arms down my sides. And then look at what she's doing. She's doing this is just an excellent demo, right? There's one little thing I would change, but for the most part, this looks great. She's got her head tucked. So many people, when they're doing Supermans, they like raise their head up and they bring it back down and raise their head. It's like, this isn't a neck routine and you're craning your neck forward. It's making your forward head posture worse. So her version, she's keeping her chin tucked and it's like, woof, the floor smells bad. So she's pulling her head back. It's great. That's exactly what we're looking for in a good prone cobra. And then she's got this excellent scapular retraction there. So she is isolated strengthening. We go back to our list here. She's isolated strengthening her rhomboids, right? She's got scapular retraction going there. She's got her middle trapezius going there. And because her arms are down, that allows her to depress her shoulders away. When she's doing that cobra, right, she's pulling back and down at the same time, like so. So that is also going to do a really good job of activating the lower trapezius. So all three of those muscles that we're going for. There's even a little bit of shoulder extension in there, which means it's a little bit of posterior deltoid. Now, the one tiny thing that she could do to make this exercise just a little bit better, and she's kind of doing it. You can see her thumbs are kind of facing neutral. Maybe they're going a little bit pointed towards the ceiling. But if she wants to get it even better, she can go with a thumbs up position towards the ceiling. So just a little adjustment would be, instead of just going on the floor and pulling back like this, which again is pretty good, I could just have her rotate her thumbs a little bit more up towards the ceiling and pull back like that directly. And that little tiny adjustment suddenly gives me external shoulder rotation. So what am I doing? Well, I'm going to activate my rotator cuff. Then, like I said, she's also tucking her chin, so she's even getting the deep cervical flexors. This is literally, literally the perfect exercise for a client with shoulder round. Could not pick a better exercise. So we're going to go with the floor prone cobra here. I'm going to link that so that my client can find it in the future. Coaching tip, face thumbs up towards the ceiling. And there we go. So now a little bit of isolated strengthening to really kind of activate that on. Now, if I want to get another really good exercise, I can do a ball cobra as well. Basically the exact same thing. So I'm not actually going to pick that version today, but like she'd go with a very simple ball cobra here. LaPatra, I feel like I am getting all the ads today. YouTube is making so much money on the two of us today. So there's a ball cobra, right? If my client has a heart,
That is awesome.
what's that? Yeah, it's awesome. So pretty good. You know, I think this is also a really just kind of a terrific sort of exercise there, especially if my client has a really hard time getting on the ground, and I don't have to do this on just the ball. I could easily put my client's chest on a bench and lay it at a 30-degree angle and accomplish the same thing. Really good. But I think I really want to get a really good amount of stability going. Instead, I can go with combo number 1, which are also referred to as a YTA. So here's ball combo number 1. Personally, I think ball combo number 1 is a little advanced for a lot of new clients, but there we go. Right? She does a Y, she does a T, and then we get another A in there as well, which is also really good. There's also like W combos as well. My client could go with a Y, a W, T, or an A, right? I can pick whatever letters I want, but NASM calls this combo number 1. There's also combo number 2, which is really good. Combo number 2 is going to be a row, right? It's a row to an external rotation to a press, unpress, unrotate, unrow. So row, rotate, press, unpress, unrotate, unrow. Also a really good one, right? But I kind of like that for a different routine. Again, if I'm gonna, well, where I'm going with all this, I think we've done a really good job of kind of creating a really good like push workout. So there's our combo number 1. Now again, with combo number 1, I could very easily not do this on the ball. I could very easily just put my client on a bench. Heck, I could even just have them do what I call bent over combo number 1 or single leg bent over combo number 1 if I want this to be a balance exercise. But because we are going for a little bit of activation in particular here with the core, we'll go with ball combo number 1, also more commonly referred to as the YTA. Copy that. Now, this exercise can be confusing for one particular reason. How do you count your reps? Is it 1, 2, 3, or is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
The first
Right?
one. The first one.
If you are brutal, it's the first one. I think it can be either one. Me personally, I'm usually a little more gentle with my clients. I usually count each movement as like 1 repetition. or you can do as many reps as you want in a certain length of time. That's also a really good option. But yes, there's nothing wrong with doing it your way. You want to do, just make sure if you're picking like 15 reps, you got to remember that's 45 reps, it sneaks up on you pretty quick. So there's our 2 core exercises. Now let's get a little bit of balance action in there. How do we get some balance in there? We want to work on, again, we want to have some external rotations and things like that. Well, there's some really good options. One that I think is really excellent is that single leg balance, single leg lift and chop. It's a really terrific exercise for just activating those shoulders and getting them nice and turned on as you lift that ball up overhead. Right? And again, it's a balance stabilization exercise because look, my balance leg, not moving. A lot of movement in this exercise, but the balance leg is not moving. So we're going to go ahead and say that's a really good one. We'll link that. And then lastly, bent over combo number 2. Another really good one that I really like. Now, this one is a little bit hard to find a good example of, actually. Yeah, nobody ever. Yeah, nobody ever does this one for balance. This is like me finding a demo of this is almost impossible. But let's go back to what I said with combo number 2. It's a row. It's a rotate. It's a press, unpress, right? That could be a really good one. And you can always just do this in a bent over position, right? So I can do this literally stand on one leg, and then I can go with like a resistance band. I can row. I can pull back with those bands. This is hard for you to see. So I can row. I can pull back with those bands, press them up overhead, bring it back down, and come to here, right? It's not bad. Also, really good ones. You can do scapular wall slides. That's another really great exercise. I can do this version here, right? Or I could do just a regular old wall slide here. I picked a YouTube short. I can't skip forward. And she's just going to go up. A lot of really good options. Personally, the one that I think works the best is this scapular wall slide here. And that's going to really focus on that stability. But how do I make it a balance exercise? Well, you just got to do it on one leg. Where are you? Come on, give me a demo here. Oh, that's interesting. That's a really freaking hard version. He's making her turn her glute. So this is actually a terrific exercise, by the way. He's killing it on this. This is a very complex exercise. I would not use this directly, but she's got a little bit of glute activation here, standing on her balanced leg. She's got a lot of glute activation with her other side, just to pin that foam roller to the wall without letting it fall. That's a fantastic glute exercise. Then she's got rotation and then the shoulder there. Not one I'm going to pick today, but I do think that that is a fantastic, I do think that's a fantastic exercise. Let's just try single leg balance with banded overhead press. Let's try that. Give me the balance. Ugh. It's literally the exercise I want. I just want him to stand on one leg. This is perfect, though. It's so darn good for shoulder stability. I can't get him on one leg. That's so annoying. Oh, you know what? She's got a good one. Let's do this. That's a single kettlebell. So single leg balance with kettlebell overhead press. There we go. I can find a video of this. So here's a kettlebell with overhead press. She's got that kettlebell upside down. Now, that's very unstable, right? So she's going to go into a little bit of balance there, right? Balance leg's not moving, but she's stabilizing in her shoulder. I will take it. I'll take what I can get today. I feel like I am not finding the videos that I normally, am looking for. But this is a terrific exercise. So I am happy with this one. So that's going to be a single leg balance with kettlebell hold. Oh my goodness, typing. Now, coaching tips definitely going to be required for this one. We're going to say hold kettlebell upside. Single leg lift and chop. I like it the way it is. Ball coming number one. I think that's great. Floor prone cover. So is this going to be the key to the world's greatest six pack with these two core exercises here? Not really, but that's not their purpose, right? They're just there to give us a really good amount of core stability. So again, we look at our NASM acute variables. Let's go over. Right. Actually, you know what? I'll pull up the PowerPoint. That's better. What are our numbers we're supposed to pick? Scrolling down to stabilization here. So 1 to 3, 1 to 3 sets. For my core stuff, I'll go down to my balance. That's also going to be 1 to 3 sets. I look at my repetitions. That's going to be 12 to 20 reps for my my core stuff, right? So 12 to 20, 12 to 20. Remember, I mean, depending on how you want to do it, that's divided by 3. What's that?
Class. Yes, no, came in. I'm trying to let them know I'm in class. I'm in school. Okay, after class. Bye. Sorry for the interruption.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's just you and me. Don't even worry about it. I'm just here to teach you what you know, what I'm supposed to teach you, but also whatever you need from me.
Yeah.
Forget I work for you. So then on our single leg lift and chop, we're seeing 1 to 3 repetitions here, right? Which is a little low in my opinion, but so we're gonna go 1 to 3, right? But that is technically each, right? So I'm actually gonna get rid of, and then we got to put our tempo here, slow tempo on all of these. Right, and actually, I'm just gonna open up my other slide here. We go to our balance training. You can also find a little bit more information in here in terms of what we're looking for. And then don't forget, we can always make things harder by putting them on a piece of equipment, right? We could always say I want to make this more challenging by putting them on the ball, half foam roller, an RX pad, or even a Dynadisc. All of those pieces of equipment are, slightly more challenging, which is great. That's how we're going to modify these things. So don't just think that they get through it and they nail it, right? We're only going to make things harder. We're only going to make things harder.
This slide you just showed, did you email it to me?
Yeah, I can tell you. I tell you what. You're going to get all of the slides from me on the 8th.
Okay.
But yeah, I can
Please.
let me see where to go. I can take a screenshot for now and send it to your way later. This is in chapter 17, by the way, for the balance stuff.
Okay.
But this is the one you're looking for.
Okay.
Okay, let's go like that. Oh my gosh. Copy slide. Paste it right there. Yeah, I'll send you all this after we're done. So, those are all really, really good pieces of equipment. You know what I mean? Like, just fantastic to make things hard. Because that's the thing, everybody always just goes up with the weight all the time, but it's like, it's not always about going up with the weight. So we kind of go back over to here, right? So our rest, we can anywhere from 0 to, 60 seconds there, right? Or actually, I guess 90 seconds is the number. We can take up to 90 seconds of rest. Right. So, all right. So now let's put it. Let's actually write this routine. This is all the stuff I kind of see in my head, right? So let's write this routine. I'm gonna have my client just do one set of everything on the foam rolling. These are all single-sided exercises, so saying 30 seconds each still makes sense there, except for the prayer stretch. That's a one-sided exercise, so we can just kind of get rid of the each there and leave that alone. Then we got our floor prone cobra here, right? Gonna be a really great one. Let's go with 3 sets of everything today.
Yeah.
And with our floor prone cobra, we'll go with like an average of like 15 reps, right? Ball cobra number 1, we'll say 5 each, right? And we'll say each movement counts as 1 rep. And then over here with the lift and chop, I still kind of like that idea of going a little bit higher with my reps here. I know I'm not technically supposed to in the new edition, but I'm going to try to get somewhere around like the number 15. So with that, like lift and chop, I'm going to go 8 each. With my kettlebell balance hold, I'm going to go 8 each. Hold kettlebell upside down, pause, 1 second, or we'll say 2 seconds for each rep of the movements. And that tells my client just to get a little bit of a pause there. And then honestly, this is a pretty darn good routine as is, but I'm just going to have my client perform this whole thing as a circuit. I'll give him 60 seconds of rest at the end. So you take a look at like the journey here. My client's shoulders are really going to be turned on, they should be pretty fired up by the time they get into the actual routine, right? They're going to go right from those prone cobras into those YTAs, into the lift and chop, into the kettlebell balance hold, right? If they need a little bit more rest than that, I could very easily program in 60 seconds of rest, just like that. It doesn't take I do that first session on my client. They're like, it's too much. By the time I get to the balance, I feel like I'm not even using my shoulder properly. I'm like, great, nope. Let's do straight sets instead, right? And the advantage there is that we can get each of these working individually. So I like this routine. It's pretty good. You know what I mean? I would say this is going to work really well, especially on a pushing or pressing day. Now, here's what I would say. I'll bet we could actually modify this a little bit and have, if I'm going to have like a routine where my client has, let's say 2 upper body workouts, right? Let's say one's like a push day and one's a pull day.
Okay.
We can call this the upper body fix it routine push day. And we can just kind of copy this. And remember, I haven't even built my workout yet, right? Again, this could be, this is the pre-workout. Let's go with them. There's kind of a classic, I guess none of those are stabilization. That should actually be, let's say, a stability ball chest press. Let's call this a single leg dumbbell shoulder press. let's call this like a Bosu ball incline chest press, and we'll call this a single leg triceps. There we go. So there's my chest day, right? We could do 3 sets of each of those. $15 reps. Slow tempo. And give our clients 60 seconds of rest. Okay, there's a really simple stabilization push workout. Now you look at your training volume here, we're doing pretty good, you know? Like that's 3 sets for the chest, 6 sets for the chest, 9 sets for the chest. If we're trying to get somewhere between like 10 to 20 sets per body part per week, we've accomplished mostly what we wanted to accomplish. And then we get into that single leg, like triceps kickback. That's a really simple exercise, right? You're just going to kind of bend over at one side, pull those in, and you're just balancing on one leg, right? I could also do that on a Bosu ball, which would make that unstable. So this is a pretty good push day routine. Now let's throw this in with a pull routine, right? So we're going to kind of copy the whole thing just to give me, another page here. And let's go into the pull routine. So this is pull day. And now I need to kind of change up my warm up a little bit, right? Now, get rid of all that. And then this is all going to become, upper back stuff. I'm primarily focused on that kind of thing. So what am I going to foam roll? I'm worried about like my upper back, and I've got this upper cross syndrome. It's like all the shoulder rounding stuff. There's a lot going on in terms of like what muscles are really tight here. But again, the posture hasn't changed, right? Like the tight muscles is still the same. But we didn't get a lot of time to spend on like our levator scapula, our sternocleidomastoid, our scalenes, those kind of things. So I'm going to say, okay, well, let's loosen up the lats a little bit, right? So we're still going to work on those. We'll say SMR a little bit for the lats, right? I also don't want like that shoulder protraction happening. So we're going to go back into the pec minor. But last time we got into the thoracic spine directly, this time I'm going to say, why don't we get into that upper trapezius area and kind of loosen that up instead. So we're going to say upper trapezius, okay? So actually, I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to copy my lats and my pec minor. I'm just going to borrow those, and that way I don't have to Google that again and watch more ads. So there's our pec minor and our lats. But a little bit of SMR for the upper trapezius. Now, I'm going to show you one that is like the most common, right? Most people are going to do stuff like this. They're going to get like a Theracane, right? You could also take a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball and press it directly into the wall there. That's going to be pretty effective. But you know what my actual favorite is? It looks a little weird. Oh no, the internet's not helping me here. Hold on. I see one image of it. There we go. Now, this is weird. You would not think you're going to use a barbell, but think about it. You can get right under there and you just stand into it, and it's a really good kind of release on that shoulder. That's my actual favorite.
Excellent.
Yeah. So that's my kind of sneaky one. I actually don't use a barbell with weight on it. I do think that's a little risky in some ways, because if you knock that thing off the freaking bar or off the rack. But a Smith machine works really well. But I'm probably not going to find somebody doing that, so we're just going to use this version. So we're going to say a little bit of SMR for the upper trapezius. I love it. So now we're going to kind of loosen those up again. We're going to do a pectoral wall stretch. Right. And then this time, let's get into those like really tight neck muscles. You know what I mean? Like, let's loosen up the levator scapula. Let's loosen up our upper trapezius. Let's loosen up that sternocleidomastoid. So I'm actually let's get rid of that there. Let's go with a static upper trapezius stretch. We're going to go with a static levator scapulae stretch. And we're going to go with a static sternocleidomastoid stretch. So, how do I do this? These are actually very, very easy. For my upper trapezius, very simply, I'm just going to take my head over to the side like this. That's it. It really doesn't take much, right? Now, if I do want to also get my scalenes in there, I can also externally rotate my hand, drop it down at my side, pull it back ever so slightly, and try to depress that on. I push my shoulder blade down. That will also depress that rib. So now I can get my trapezius and my scalene stretched out at the same time. Cool. How do I get my levator scapula? Sounds weird, but you're going to smell your armpit. So I'm going to take my arm up like this. I'm going to turn my head to the side. I'm going to drop that down. And so literally, I will tell my clients, smell your pit. And you'll feel a little stretch right back there in the levator scapula. Finally, how do I do my my sternocleidomastoid? Now, a lot of people will do this version. They'll take one hand back like this. That's going to push that shoulder blade down, which is nice. And then they're simply going to look over and up like that. And that little bit of like head tilt is going to get into the sternocleidomastoid. I like it. It's a really good stretch. I think it's good. But I will say one thing. Your sternocleidomastoid attaches right here at your sternum and your clavicle. And you can actually manually distract that clavicle bone with your other hand. Just give it a little tiny press. We go back here, give it a little push, head over, up. And now I'm getting an even deeper stretch in that sternocleidomastoid. So just right in there. So static versions of all three of those. We'll go with that one. Getting into the levator scapula. Versions that I like. There we go. And then, like I said, I like the one where you just give it a little bit. That's so weird. Why is that hidden? That's a Brent Brookbush video. There's no way that that is anything that you shouldn't see. Like, Brent Brookbush is awesome. And he's talking about the suboccipitals here, which is, that just means that like it's the back of somebody's head. Google must be confused. That is funny though. Yeah, I can never find a picture where somebody's actually doing the collarbone depress. So we'll just use this one. Okay. So again, we're going to go with one set on each of these. And they are all double-sided exercises. So put that on all of them. I will put on the coaching tip, depress collarbone with opposite. And the rest of that looks really good. Oh, I will say also reach for floor with opposite. That's a really good coaching tip, right? Just reach down with that on. So now we got a slightly different warm up written. And now we get a little bit of core work going here. So this time again, it's mostly an upper back workout, right? So I want to make sure that like I've got nice, good stability for my upper back muscles, right? Maybe this time for my core stuff, right? I can get into something where maybe I actually push away and activate the correct core muscles. We really haven't seen just your classic plank yet, you know, or as NASA would call it, the prone iso abs, right? But that's a really good opportunity if we go back to our underactive muscles list, right? That's a good opportunity for me to press into the floor, right? And I can activate some of those stabilizing muscles there, right? But maybe I want to get a little bit more for muscles like my posterior deltoid, right? I can get my deep cervical flexors, by the way, tucking my chin during a plank. So actually, let's put a picture of that. Plank, chin, sorry. A lot of good examples here. Not that. Definitely not that. Don't look forward. We just got to keep that chin tucked a little bit better. You know what? I'm gonna just look up plank. Yeah. Find better demos like not asking for the chin tuck. Probably here. Get another core exercise in there where I'm going for, again, a little bit of that like stability work where I'm going to hold, you know, I'm trying to activate these muscles that are going to kind of like keep my low traps depressed. We didn't do it last time. Let's get that ball cobra in there, you know. Didn't get a chance last time. This time it's going to fit really well. Then we've got to get a little bit of balance in there. Now with balance, I'm looking for something that's going to really help me, like, you know, retract my scapula, right? So it might be something, like I said, like, you know, we're still trying to get the same kinds of muscles really turned on here, right? Like rotator cuffs and things like that. So last time we had a little bit of like the YTA, we had the lift and chop, and then we had that kettlebell hold. Well, this time, let's go over here and get a little bit more of a rowing action, right? So maybe I'll do like a single leg balance with face pull, right? So a single leg balance with face pull would look something kind of like this. Actually, there's a really good, talked about that kettlebell stability earlier. That's a great one. Oh, come on. How silly. Actually, this is pretty good as well. Can't find any of the demos. I'm sending this to you, so I want to make sure that I'm getting like the video versions of these things. Let's do a single leg balance with external rotation. We'll get something like that instead. What about if I said W pull? Will that pull it up? Oh, internet, you're killing me today. Ah, ha, 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 ha. Finally found it. Okay. Oh, you stupid. Okay, never mind. He's not balancing. He's moving. Ah, Again, remember we got to like not move the balanced leg. So he's doing all that like hinging junk, literally like ruining it. All right, well, I'm just gonna pull a regular W pull for you. And then we're just gonna say perform on one leg in our notes, not the Superman. Good Lord. The internet is just failing me today. That is not what that's called, people. All right, so there we go. We're gonna do the regular old cable face pull, but I'm gonna say perform that on one leg. Different than the freaking demo. All right, last thing, last little bit we need for just a little bit of like upper back contraction. Let's get that combo number 2. So we're gonna go with balance combo number 2. What is this one? Oh, it is definitely not that. So ball combo number 2. All right, so she's going to, again, she's going to give it the row, the rotation, the press, and that's all going to really just get those upper back muscles just super, super, super primed for us to get into this upper body workout, right? So now we go down here and we can build, actually, let's do it through 3 sets again. Now, on this one, we'll say like 30 seconds each. For the ball combo, we'll go with 15 again. Single leg balance at the face pull, we'll go 8 each. Combo number 2, we're gonna go 5, or we're gonna go 15 reps on that. Slow tempo on everything. And we'll go 60 seconds of rest, just like we did last time. So both of these workouts should actually pair really well together because they're nice and, you know, synced up in terms of their sets and reps. It's going to make you as the trainer, it's really easy for you to make sure this fits within the hour that you have to train your client. So now, last time we went with 1, 2, 3, 4 upper body chest exercises. This time we're just going to go with 4 upper body, upper back exercises. So it might go with like a half kneeling cable row, right? That's where you have a client in like a kneeling position here, and they're just going to row. This makes it slightly unstable by being on one leg. We might go with like a, let's say, a half kneeling lat pull down. Same concept, but they're getting that sort of like adduction pull movement. Let's go with something that is probably another like rowing action. Might go with like a stability ball 2-point row. That way they can get like one arm at a time in there. And then let's go with like a single leg dumbbell curl. Right? So again, we'll go with 3 sets of everything. 15 reps. Go 8 each on that. Nice slow tempo. Oh, actually, this should be 15 each. A single-sided exercise. "60 seconds of rest." And now we've got workout A. It's a good push routine. We got workout B. It's a pretty good pull routine. And then we just need to work out C, that is something that's like pretty darn leg based, you know, get a good leg workout in there. Maybe all the stuff that we did yesterday for the anterior pelvic tilt, or maybe what we did on the first day for, you know, our pronation distortion syndrome, you know, all those are going to work pretty well. But either way, now we have got, a schedule for our client. So we can put together like a little bit of homework for them to do on their cardio days that also might be really effective. And they do that movement prep, that same thing. And now they're getting a chance to kind of work on these overactive, underactive muscles. They're restoring their posture. They're getting rid of their aches and pains, while they're also getting a chance to like build some muscle mass like they want to. So I know I keep asking questions, comments on any of that. Feeling pretty good? Uh-oh. Look, just you're still muted. Just I can't actually hear anything you're saying. If you're saying it, I can't see it either. Lepatch, I'm gonna give you 10 minutes. I can't hear you here. I don't know.
What did you say?
Oh, hi. Hi, you still with me? You there?
Pammy?
You're still with me, right? Yeah, sorry. I can't hear
I'm
you
with
or
you.
see
I
you or
didn't go
anything like that.
nowhere.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna give you a few minutes. We'll come back and we'll wrap this up with a little bit of leg stuff. And then we'll have a full routine.
Excellent. So we're going on break, 10 minutes?
Yep, 10 minutes.
All right. Thank you.
Of course. Okay. So we're gonna do one last little thing today. We're gonna get into one final little bit here. We're just gonna kind of finish off this routine, right? So we had 2 programs we wrote yesterday, right? We had a upper cross syndrome, we had a lower cross syndrome. And like I said, I wanted to get to a place where we have a good sort of typed up version of this. So I got it right here. And we want to deal with the anterior pelvic tilt version. Stay. So we're basically just going to kind of copy this. Let's put this on a new page and delete all of this stuff. And
Okay.
yes. You with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
Excellent.
The one you copied, you place it in a new page, right?
Yeah. I just put it, so I'm just going like,
Ah, I see.
yeah, insert they call it a page break, I think. I'm no like word processing expert, but
That makes sense.
so we're gonna call this leg day, and then we're gonna call this is a lower cross syndrome fix it routine, right? Because if I remember right, that's our big thing. You and I would have opposite programs here, but so we're gonna go with a little bit of SMR for the erector spinae. We are going to see a little bit of SMR for those hip flexors, and we're going to get the TFL. So let's find our demos for those. SMR, erector spinae. Not this. Never this. Friggin' dummies on the internet. No. Drives me crazy. But this would work, little pill, so that your spine processes can go between the gap. We love it. Personally, I just use a lacrosse ball. I just do both sides separately. But you can use the pill if you want to make the pill, and you can get them on Amazon. Like, what is it? Double cross ball. $15, For me, I just use the one lacrosse ball and I just move it to the other side. That 30 seconds of my life is not that valuable.
Right.
But you can get these if you want to. So we're just going to take that lacrosse ball. It is always kind of hard to find a good image of it. Let's try low back. We'll get less scientific. There we go. Now the internet pulls up my picture. Then we got to get into the hip flexors there. That one's pretty simple. I'm just going to get right on the front. He's using lacrosse ball. It's not so bad. Personally, I find a foam roller is easy enough to use on this one. The one thing I don't like, see a lot of people doing this version here, your other leg totally gets in the way, which is kind of annoying. So personally, I like the version where you're just going to place that roller off to one side. Let's see here. Let's try SMR rectus femoris. See if that pulls it up. No. See, I don't like these because I find that like your other leg totally gets in the way. So I'm just looking for the picture of the way I like to do it, which is I use, there we go. Just the very edge of the roller, like barely on it. You know what I mean?
Is that
It's the same as all the other ones. It's just, you see this version, she's going across the roller. So like her other leg is going to get in the way. You know what I mean? Whereas if you let that leg drop down and hang off of the roller, it's a little bit easier to get that low angle, which I think is much better. But for the TFL, totally the opposite. Now we want to be right on the roller, right there in our pocket. So again, 1 to 3 sets, but we're not going to write that. We're just going to pick 1, 30 seconds each. Then I need to do a static stretch. So we went with the static erector spin stretch. That's going to be that child's pose. For the record, you could also do this twisting version. This is also a really good erector spin stretch. Just a little bit of a twist there. Just like that. That also works really well. But personally, I think you're going to get a little bit more out of it with just that classic child's pose there. Then we went with a half kneeling hip flexor stretch. Use this version here because we love. Actually, that's also, this is even better with a slight rear foot elevation. And then lastly, that static standing TFL stretch. Is that a GIF? Nope. And we'll go with that. 30 seconds each on all those. And then did we have some coaching tips? I would say use lacrosse ball. And then squeeze the glutes. And now we've got a pretty good translation to our warm-up from yesterday. Now we just need to get a little bit of that core work in there, right? So we'll go with that McGill curl up. We're going to go with that modified side plank. And we're going to get that bird dog exercise, followed by the single leg balance with reach. And then our coaching tips, frontal and transverse planes only. Each rep, 2 to 3 seconds, and hold each rep 2 to 3 seconds. And then yesterday we did 3 sets. I'm going to change this ever so slightly. We were on a big 15 kick today, so I'm going to just modify our reps. So we're going to go with 15 again. This will say 20 seconds each, just on each side there. Bird dog, that would be probably 8 each. That's going to take forever if we do 15 each on that. And then lastly, single leg balance with reach, 8 each as well. Slow tempo on all of those. And now, oh, I got to get all my images. Hold on. Do I like his demo? That's the important part. I do. That's perfect.
Wow. Okay.
And it's not much, right? You can see he's barely coming off, but trust me, that is actually much harder than it looks. You know, we'll just use all three of this guy's videos. Ah, he didn't put up there. He is. Get this guy some likes. Ooh, what's this one? Nope. Here's my problem. I really like most of what this guy's doing. I don't like the fact that he is going straight back, toe forward. I want that glute to fire more with a little bit of external rotation. So this is also good, right? But I want that like transverse movement. I want, see how she's going to open up her hip, right? Like her hips stay facing forward, but she's swinging the foot open. That's much better for
Okay.
firing that whole glute. So we'll go with this demo here, but we're just going to take out that sagittal part of it, which is what we said in the coaching tip anyhow. Frontal and transverse planes only. And now we just got to put together a really simple lower body routine, you know? So we'll get some of our big ones in there, right? Let's go with something that's like unstable with like a squat variation, maybe like a Bosu ball rack squat. It's one of my all-time favorites. If you're not familiar with that, a rack squat is where you actually use a kettlebell. Oh, see, it's going to pull up images of squat racks. That's not what I want. See, this is a difficult one to Google, but it is the name of the exercise. So here's your kettlebell rack squat, right? So holding a kettlebell like this is, we call that the rack position. So he's going to swing into it because he's using two very heavy kettlebells. But that position right there, that's called the rack position. He's going to squat. It's good. But I like it with a single arm. So this version right here, and you don't have to swing into it. He's swinging into it. But one arm up, and he's going to squat. That challenges your stability. So we'll go with a kettlebell rack squat. Then so now we've got a squatting action in there. Let's get a nice deadlifting action in there. Let's go with like a single leg Romanian deadlift. One of my all-time favorite exercises. He's going to do the body weight version here. Try to go with the massive demos whenever I can. Pretty good. There's also, I think, getting a lunging movement in there is going to be good. So we'll go with like a reverse lunge to, actually, you know what? Let's go with a step up to that. Get a good step up in there. And we'll do the frontal version. So get a little abduction movement in there, right? So we'll go with a frontal plane step up to balance. We didn't build like the full-blown workout yesterday, so I'm adding these in. And then lastly, let's get something that is just a little bit like really kind of glute specific, maybe a little bit of a lunge variant. I think a really good movement to add here would be like a Bulgarian split squat. Just a fantastic exercise. I don't know if you've done these, but they are so gosh darn good for you. And that's a good one there. He's doing a front squat, but we don't want to do the front squat. He's going to get into the tutorial part of it in just a second here. But basically, you're going to have one foot elevated and you're going to lunge down. You don't have to make that contact, by the way, but just that little bit right there. Just what a terrific exercise. Just targets your glutes like crazy. And now we got a pretty balanced routine, right? We'll go with 8 each on that because, again, it's single-sided. We'll go with 8 each on that. This one, we're going to go 12 each or 15 each. Get a little bit of cardio. And actually, now that I do that, let's actually move that down here. Just because that'll make a really good little cardio finisher. Then we'll go with 8 each on that one as well. Slow tempo. And now we have just built a very solid 3-day routine. This would work super well on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Tuesdays, Thursdays, or Saturdays, however you want your schedule to look. This is going to be a pretty darn good routine. So, you know what I'm going to ask? Questions, comments, concerns. How do you feel about all that?
Yeah, everything looks good so far. Like the one we did yesterday, the hold on, let me check it out.
The anterior pelvic tilt.
Yes, those one. Okay. Mama, I did class. So I want to see that if we can get everything just like build up like this, like you promised me.
So this is, that's it. This is it right here. This is the
Lower
one.
cross syndrome. Okay.
What is it?
We did lower cross syndrome.
Yep.
Yesterday we did the tweet. Let me get the picture. I don't have my glasses, so pardon me. Okay. Yeah. Yesterday in class we did the lower back arch.
Yes, lower cross
And
syndrome, low back arch.
yes.
Those are the
And
same
the
thing, remember?
Okay.
So that is this routine. See, look at the things. Make go curl up, modified single leg balance reach. This is the routine from yesterday.
That's true. Okay.
So I'm gonna save this and send this to you as one big document. So you'll see it's got 3 days here. And this would be a very good beginner's routine that you can like practice with, that's very sort of NASM textbook. And related to, we were talking about like your specific like postural things. This is something that you can actually sort of work on and kind of master. Like I would, if you were my client, this is like a routine that I would do for you. It's not the heaviest on the strength training, but it's definitely going to get you in really good shape. So let's save this on the desktop.
I also wanted to take a picture of the what's it called? The first the picture of the one that has the overactive and the underactive mode. The picture where you pointed it out on the post on the this one.
Yep. Yeah, I'll put that in the email as well.
Thank you so much.
All right, so that is gonna wrap you up for this week. We'll be back on Monday, and we're gonna get a chance for you to kind of fill this stuff in yourself.
No, I'm gonna practice it this week.
Love that. All righty.
Thank
So I'm gonna let you out of here, and I will see you on Monday.
All right. Thank you. God bless
Have a
you.
great weekend.
You too. Bye.